Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Play on GA podcast. I'm here with Luke. Luke, how's it going?
Oh, good, Seamus. Thought it was a great weekend of action, and I'm looking forward to talking about it now.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. It was a wonderful weekend where the groups got decided. We'll start with the game of the weekend, Donegal versus Armagh. One goal and 16 points apiece. Armagh had home advantage, started off brilliantly. There were 4 points to one up. Stephen Campbell looked unplayable. The O'Neill brothers again showing their class. Armagh looked to be home and hosed. And then Donegal staged a brilliant comeback. Niall O'Donnell kicking the equalising point seals that Donegal topped the group. So we were correct in our predictions that Donegal and Tyrone would top that group. Not in the way that I thought we would be correct, though. Armagh really showed that they belong at this level.
Yep, completely. I thought it was a fantastic game, and Armagh will be kicking themselves if they didn't win this one in the end. You're looking kind of at Donegal were down a few, Murphy out and everything, and they really looked comfortable. But I really thought McBurdy was really at his best here the other day. Like, I thought at times he was single-handedly dragging kind of Donegal back into that game. Some of the trademark off his left kind of cutting in on the left and stuff, and I thought he was just absolutely outstanding. So yeah, I think for the sake of championship, it's really exciting to see McBrearty kind of coming back to this level, just like a few weeks beyond Ulster Championship football.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And one thing that stood out to me about the Donegal lineup was when Murphy dropped out and then Neil McGee was lately replaced by Stephen McMenamin. Paddy McBrearty was the only player who started for Donegal on the weekend who has an All Ireland medal. So he was the senior player there, and he did step up for them. He hit some wonderful points, and while we're talking about wonderful points, Armagh hit some wonderful points as well. The one that sticks out to me is Oisin O'Neill got the ball thrown back to him. He was about 50 metres out and he just belted it over the bar. Unbelievable point. And one thing that you notice particularly is the fans. You wouldn't have necessarily noticed if there was only about 400, 500 fans there, but having been so long, the raw atmosphere of a crowd being there, it can't be replaced.
Yeah, completely. And you could sense that at the end of the game, as the game started to close, in such a tight contest. The noise levels for a crowd of 500 was unbelievable, really. And yeah, it's only when they come back that you realise what was kind of missing from these games. And there's no doubt that this had a real championship feel to it, in largely due to the fact that the crowd was there spurring each team on. So yeah, I thought it was definitely the game of the weekend, kind of.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And there was some very eye-catching key moments in the game. And in my opinion, the goals, as with every game, the goals were huge. And Donegal's goal, Michael Langan, already a contender for goal of the year. Just an unbelievable footballer this guy has become, and took a long, long solo run and then smashed it into the back of the net. Unbelievable finish into the roof of the net. You could argue, in my opinion, that he might have been fouled if it wasn't for the new rule. Armagh's players seem to be kind of running alongside him, very, very afraid to put in a tackle, very afraid to foul him. And that kind of allowed him to go through the tackles. In my opinion, I think they would have been more likely to kind of check him a little bit, not let him run through if they thought that they wouldn't get a penalty and then a black card. As for Armagh's goal, Stefan Campbell showed his class, unbelievable burst of pace, and then he found Tiernan Kelly inside, who slotted it home. And at that point, Armagh looked like they were going to win, but Donegal showed they've some serious backbone, even without Michael Murphy, to come back and to get a draw out of that game. But yeah, no, the goals were crucial again.
Yeah, completely. And I think both teams might be a little bit disappointed with the two goals. I think with the two goals that were conceded in the game, like you said, Langan just ran right through the centre of the Armagh defence, so they will be disappointed with that. Yeah, like you're saying, that maybe the fact that the black card incentive was there kind of stopped a player making a challenge, but you have to do something to kind of impede him in some sort of way to slow him down. Kind of, you can't just allow him to run straight through the middle like that. And then even for the Armagh goal as well, I thought, I thought Campbell kind of got through fairly easily as well there. So yeah, both teams, despite like having shown really good parts, they still have stuff to work on ahead of Ulster as well.
No, that was something that would worry me if I was Declan Bonner, because for Armagh's goal, Donegal again had loads of bodies back, but the way that Armagh just got through was so easy, and there were instances that were highlighted where Donegal had 6 or 7 on up to 9 bodies back. and still, particularly Stephen Campbell, would find space and score easy points. And they cannot be allowing that. And Armagh, they've coped really well, having lost Jamie Clark for the year. Their forward line still looks really good. Rory Grugan, as I mentioned, the O'Neill brothers all played really well. Campbell was superb. Jamar Hall hit some nice points. His moment again, he had a goal chance and he fisted it over the bar. And I'm thinking, if I'm in that position there, if I'm Kieran McGeeney, I would want Jamar Hall to go for the goal there, because you're Armagh, you're playing in Division 1. This game could get you into the semi-finals. I'd say you have to go for the goal in that situation if you're Jamar Hall, because Donegal eventually got back into the game, and a goal at that stage could have finished them off.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think, like you were saying, like the whole point we've been making here is that like Armagh will be absolutely gutted to lose this game. It's a provincial rival, a team that kind of as well has had a traditional kind of advantage over them kind of in recent years, I suppose. But and yeah, this was a chance kind of to lay down a marker here. We're so close to championship now at this stage, so they'll be a bit disappointed to knock them out with the win here. But like we've been saying here as well, though, it's been a great campaign for them. They've developed kind of this. They've competed in every game really, really well. And you look at the kind of the forwards that have come through. Like last year, they were kind of fairly reliant on Reno O'Neill up front, kind of, and now they've developed. Oisin's kind of come through as well. Now he's gone from being a kind of fringe player to now he's starting in their full forward, and like he'd be expecting to be later in the year. So I think McGeeney would be absolutely delighted with how it's gone, kind of, and they look to have a team that's definitely going to fancy their chances of competing.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But the more interesting team for me is Donegal, because last year I would have put Donegal, particularly when Kerry got knocked out, I would have saw Donegal as the most likely team to beat Dublin in the championship last year. And after their performances in the league, even though they've topped the group, they haven't looked as good as they looked last year, particularly in the championship when they beat Tyrone and swept Armagh aside, and everything looks so good about them. Some positives for them, of course, Owen McNeilish came off the bench after 40 minutes for Paul Brennan. He's a superb player. And if he can get anywhere near the player that he was, Donegal have a class player with him. If they get Michael Murphy back fit, obviously, there's no telling how important he is for Donegal. How do you see them this year in comparison to how strong they were last year?
I think they're in a tough spot at the moment. I think like we've talked kind of at length about the Murphy injury. Championship is about 3 weeks away now at this stage, so like they are. He's gonna be up against it to come back. Neil McGee's wasn't around at the weekend. Gallen didn't play at the weekend. They have a few knocks. Kind of Ryan McHugh's not probably playing at the level he has been playing at as well. So they're not coming into this in great shape. So it's really hard to know. Maybe it'll click in the next couple of weeks for them. But I think people were kind of walking into this year with Donegal back as favourites, kind of for Ulster, that they'd kind of get over the kind of the Cavan loss last year. But I think with the way the league's gone completely, I think Ulster could go anyway. It's very, very difficult to predict now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Moving on from Ulster just for the time being, we'll be back to Ulster teams in no time. But first, we're going to talk about the Galway versus Dublin game. It finished Galway 1 goal and 15 points, Dublin 2 goals and 16 points. Good performance from Galway, but they weren't enough. They didn't play well enough to beat Dublin. What did you make of this game?
Yeah, I thought, it's pretty much it was a standard Dublin win, kind of, where they were kind of in the league, especially when they were kind of pushed for large parts of the game, but ultimately they come out on top in the end. But yeah, I thought positives for Galway. I thought they competed really well, and barring a late kind of Aaron Byrne goal, I think it would have been a very, very tight kind of finish. So yeah, I think Galway would be happy enough, and then Dublin obviously delighted because they come out with the result once again.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And once again, Dublin get the win, but they do it this time with some new faces and new names in the team. Peadar O'Cofaigh Byrne was in midfield for Dublin. Of course, Michael Shield was in goal. I thought his kickouts were superb. Aaron Byrne, not the most well-known name, but he has been on the scene for Dublin and he's been brilliant for Na Fianna for quite a few years. His goal was superb, and that finished Galway off. Conor O'Callaghan just hung on to the ball, just showed a hell of a lot of patience, hung on to it until a gap opened in the Galway defence. Quick hand pass, And Aaron Burns showed he was really goal hungry. He went straight at the goal. He could have taken his point there. What a finish. And yeah, I think Dublin, they'd be happy enough with that. Only one thing that I would say that they can have to be nervous about is a long ball led to Galway's goal for Matthew Tierney. And now, usually I'm saying that long balls don't tend to work against Dublin, but there's one player that I think that they kind of sometimes do work on, and that's Johnny Cooper. He was the guy who was marking Matthew Tierney. Matthew Tierney just drops off a couple of yards. Paul Conroy boots it in from midfield, and it results in a goal for Galway. You think of the 2019 All-Ireland final when David Clifford, of course, won the penalty off Johnny Cooper because Kerry just launched the ball in and Cooper gave away a silly penalty. I think with him, if you can isolate someone on Johnny Cooper near the goal and then you put the high ball in, yeah, I think you can get Dublin that way.
Yeah, I think so. It was the first goal chance I think Dublin kind of coughed up all game. So it was a bit of a surprise when it came around. Probably Mick should be a little bit disappointed with that one that he kind of came rushing out and didn't get to it. But other than that, I thought he was outstanding. But yeah, I think it's a fair point about Cooper. Cooper wouldn't be probably the greatest man marker that Dublin have, and that ideally for Dublin, if he is going to be starting for them this year, they'll be hoping to have him as a free man, kind of covering space, because I think that's what he does best. So yeah, for opposition teams, if they can try and push up a man on Cooper and try and get him man marking, then maybe there is a bit of joy to get out of there later in the year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Cooper's a very good man marker if you're talking about putting him wing back or corner back on someone. But I think if you're isolating him in very close to the goal, I think he has mistakes in him. And yeah, it was interesting to see Sean McMahon started again. He looks very promising. Galway, on the other hand, they definitely looked better in this game. When you talk about how they got torn apart by Kerry, they had a lot more bodies back this time. They didn't have as naive an approach to the game as they did against Kerry. I think Pádraig Joyce is kind of accepting that he can't play, this ultra attacking football without getting exposed at the back, particularly against the Kerrys and the Dublins. I think he will try and find the balance between defence and attack. They did look a lot better in this game than they did against Kerry. I think they look better in this game than they did against Roscommon as well. But I think they'll struggle to win the Connacht Championship considering how good Mayo look.
Yeah, I think unfortunately for Pádraig Joyce, I think he's realised that this is kind of how they have to play if they want to kind of compete in Division 1, and that if they go out and play the kind of swashbuckling style that he wants, they're going to get picked off and they're going to get beaten by the big teams kind of. So, yeah, look, they have to play kind of a bit defensively. I don't think he probably really wants to, but for them to kind of stay competitive, they nearly kind of have to, and they kind of stay in games and stuff but I wouldn't be expecting them to be contending much this year. I don't think at the moment that the squad's really good enough. It was very, very reliant on Shane Walsh the weekend, who was amazing, kind of kicking up both feet. But yeah, I think they're a little bit short at the moment, and they just need to keep building, I suppose.
Yeah, I think, as I said a couple of weeks previous, I said that I wouldn't put Galway down as All-Ireland contenders this year, but I wouldn't rule them out of winning the All-Ireland in the near future. I think they've got a good base there. Peter Cook and Paul Conroy at midfield is a very solid base. They've got Damien Comer, they've got Shane Walsh, they've got Kieran Malloy, and they've got Sean Mulcairn, who I think is a really good fullback. Just have a few edges that they need to sharpen, and if they do that, then I think that they could be contenders in a few years' time.
Yep, absolutely. I thought the other interesting part of this game was Cormac Costello's performance with 6 points, 5 in play, and I thought he was really, really good. And he's definitely putting his hand up to start for the later on in the season. Do you think? I don't know if we don't know where, how long Dean Rock until he's back. Does Costello? Is Costello able to go for the other corner forward position in that team, or is he going to rival Dean Rock out for a position this year? So he looks to be in great form, and seems very hard to imagine that he won't be starting first couple of games in Championship anyway.
Yeah, personally, right now, if Dublin were to play a Championship game, I would put Costello at right corner forward and I would put Dean Rock at left corner forward. I don't know what Paul Mannion is up to this year.
But, no, Mannion is sitting out this year. Mannion won't be with the panel this year, so there is definitely a place there between Small, Basquel, or Costello, kind of up for grabs.
Yeah, personally, as good as Paddy Small is, I prefer Cormac Costello to him. And I think Colin Basquel is really good to bring off the bench. So personally, that would be my full forward line for Dublin: Costello, O'Callaghan, and Dean Rock.
Yep, I think that definitely sounds it sounds good. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. You look at kind of the other lads as well, like you were already talking about, Kofi Byrne and Sean McMahon kind of getting starts. Like, do you think any of them could force their way into the team as it goes on?
I think so, because I think that Dublin are clearly looking for someone to match with Brian Fenton in midfield. That's why they keep trying Tom Lahiff there, in my opinion. That's why they keep bringing back players like O'Coffey Byrne into the team. Brian Howard usually prefers to play in the half forward line, as good as he is in midfield. I'd love to see Brian Howard playing in the half forward line if we could find almost a replacement for Michael Darmacali in midfield. And I think that's the idea behind Lahiff and O'Coffey Byrne. So I do think in the Leinster Championship, we're going to see Sean McMahon getting game time, O'Coffey Byrne getting game time, and Tom Lahiff getting game time.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think Sean McMahon definitely has a chance, considering John Small's kind of injury. There's an extra place up for grabs in that defence, and I think unless, like, even if he's not the starting player, he'll be the seventh back this year, I think, for Dublin. So yeah, I expect him to get a fair bit more game time as well. I was impressed with O'Coffey Byrne at the weekend. I thought he had a fair few turnovers. He had about 3 or 4 turnovers. Looked really good defensively anyway. I think he's a great prospect. So it'll be interesting to see how they progress later on this year. Like,
yeah, well, I would look at the way that Dublin rotate as very similar to how Manchester United evolved under Alex Ferguson. That year in, year out, 1 or 2 players come or go. That if even in the 5 in a row team, the 2015 All-Ireland final team was very different to the 2019 All-Ireland final team. There were a lot of players came and went in between those few years. And this is the same thing. It's carried on now. It's a system. It's a process. A couple of new players come in each year and a couple of players go. And it was the same thing with Ferguson at Manchester United. He'd buy one player, a starter, and then he'd buy a squad player every year. And then after 5 years, the squad looks completely different than how it did 5 years previous. This is how Dublin stay on top. They're not relying on one batch of players for 10 years at a time.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so yeah, I think those are the names to keep out for this year, for the latest ones coming through.
Yeah. Back to Ulster football now. Another real championship type game between Tyrone and Monaghan. There were fans at the game. The atmosphere looked incredible. Tyrone 14 points, Monaghan 14 points. Very, very tight game. Both teams looked good in patches and both teams looked a bit shaky in patches. Tyrone looked like they had the game won. Matty Donnelly hit over what looked like the winning point in the 76th minute. Brilliant kick off his left foot. And then Monaghan showed a lot of patience, a lot of cool-headedness, brilliant leadership by Ryan McAnespie with the last kick of the game to stroke over the equaliser, and 14 points apiece. What did you make of this game?
Yeah, I thought it was, like you were saying, it was certainly had championship kind of feel. And I thought it was kind of funny in a game. I thought it was ironic that the game had 4 black cards due to the fact that the black card was introduced due to a Tyrone and Monaghan game. So yeah, it was it was very similar to an Ulster Championship type game, I thought. But yeah, the ending of it was absolutely superb. You look at kind of Tyrone thought they had it won with the Matty Donnelly score, and then McAnespie with like a real kind of low percentage kind of effort, I thought, kind of really crowded area, and he still managed to put it over the bar. So yeah, it was a superb finish. And yeah, I think both teams will be kind of happy with it. Obviously, Tyrone progressed. Monaghan will be going down to a tough enough kind of relegation fixture. But yeah, exciting game.
Yeah, definitely. And Monaghan will also feel, in my opinion, that they let the game slip. O'Hanlon scored a point after a bursting run that made it 13 points to 10. And at that point, Monaghan looked like they could see it out, but they didn't. Tyrone came back really well. Both teams looked really good in patches and really shaky in patches, as I've said. Tyrone's positives is that Darren McCurry looked very good. And he's always been, in my mind, a mercurial talent. He's always been brilliant, but then he'll have games where he's not quite up to scratch. If he can hit form, he's a superb player. Right now, if you were Brian Dooher and Fergal Logan, would you start him for Tyrone?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at the form in the league, the last 2 weeks now, you had Paul O'Donoghue the first week seemed to be the main man, kicked 10 points. But ever since then, McCurry's completely taken over, kind of. And so, yeah, it was kind of him and Derek Canavan kind of played in a two-man full forward line and seemed to be pretty effective. So I'd say I wouldn't be surprised to see something along those lines for the start of the championship. Maybe there's a few more to come back in. We're kind of still waiting word on McShane and all these players to see where they're at. But I think, yeah, I'd be expecting the full forward line of McCurry and Canavan playing in there together.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As for Monaghan, again, as I've said, some good things and some bad things. They were very poor in the first half. They scored 1 point from play off the boot of Conor McManus. They scored that 1 point from playing the whole first half. Then they came to life in the second half. Desi Ward levelled it at 7 points apiece. Then they went ahead. Conor McCarthy put them 2 points up. Then O'Hanlon, as I've mentioned, put them 13 points to 10 up. And then they switched off again. They seem to be a bit like that, inconsistent. When they're firing, they're a superb team. They have world-class players. Interestingly enough, Peter Hart was man marking Conor McCarthy, which is something that you'd rarely see a player so talented going forward being a man marker. But he did a good job on Conor McCarthy, and I wonder, is this a position that we're going to see him doing more?
Yep, I thought that was very, very interesting aspect of the game. Especially considering McCarthy only hit 1 point in the game following his exploits last week against Donegal. He was kind of a marked man coming into this game, and yeah, he was far more quieter this week. So I think that performance will definitely kind of give Fergal Logan and Brian Dooher some thought about positioning Peter Hart. I think a lot of us kind of assumed he might be back in half forward this year, but yeah, I think that's going to be. I think that was a very interesting kind of development. So yeah, still plenty of questions kind of on how Tyrone kind of are going to set up, and I think next week when they play Kerry, how they line up out and what positioning some of those players are in will be like very, very interesting.
Yeah, 100%. So moving on from that game, we're going to talk about the last game in Division 1. Game that was a bit of a dead rubber. Roscommon's fate was sealed. Kerry did have to get a result, and they did. But they did make 7 changes. But they still look good. But the key moment, in my opinion, was the key talking point was the Tig Morley red card. It looked awful on the initial sighting of it. When you look at it a little bit closer, he did look like he was kind of a reflex, but I still understand why he was sent off. It looked awful at the first sighting, which is what we all saw, and unfortunately, that's all the referees get.
Yep, I think you see this in the National League a lot. That referees are strict on any head contact now. You look at kind of hurling. There was an incident with Tony Kelly a few years, maybe last year I think it was, that it was kind of just a slap, like a slap around head height, and then once that catches it all at head level, I think referees in the league are looking to give a red card. It's just nearly as a kind of statement that they're going to stamp this out and that they're not going to be tolerating kind of head high tackles. So I can understand completely why it was given. It was probably very, very harsh. Morley had no kind of intention whatsoever to catch him that high. So it was unfortunate for Morley's sake. He was only just on the pitch, but I can kind of understand why it was given, even if it was very, very harsh.
Yeah, I understand that. And Morley doesn't strike me at all as a dirty player, someone that would be trying to hit a player like that in the face. As for Roscommon, good performance from them. I think we expected Kerry to beat them a little bit more convincingly than they did. I think the Morley red card did have an impact on the game. Roscommon looked very good. Kieran Murtagh was superb all throughout the game. Some good shooting from Connor Cox as well. This guy can put the ball over the bar from anywhere on the pitch if you give him a chance. Kerry will be very confident as well after that game because it was a different type of win. They grinded it out a little bit more. They went down to 14 men, and then David Clifford palmed in a goal after a good setup by Paddy Clifford, and Joe O'Connor's goal coming off the bench kind of finished Roscommon off.
Yeah, I think Roscommon will be happy with it because even at the red card, they were still well in that game. It was still within 3 points when the red card happened, and that Kerry certainly did not pull away in this game, and they nearly kind of improved after the red card for a little bit. The Palms goal was straight away after it. So yeah, I think plenty of kind of positives for Roscommon. I think it was an awful lot closer than some people had kind of expected. I think a lot of people saw what Kerry had done to Galway and had assumed that they were going to do the same to Roscommon. I know they rested a few players, but still, yeah, Roscommon, they competed very, very well. And it's probably the Joe O'Connor goal probably made the scoreline look a little bit nicer, look a bit more comfortable for Kerry than what it actually was.
Yeah, and of course we have to give a mention to Roscommon's goal, Conor Devaney. Roscommon punishing a Kerry mistake really well. They turn Kerry over, little hand pass inside to Conor Devaney and a great finish. He's been a great servant for Roscommon, and I still think he's a good player. Personally, I'd start him for Roscommon at wing forward. I think he's a real industrious Kevin McLaughlin style player. But how do you see Roscommon now going into the Connacht Championship after a performance like that? Would you give them more of a chance now, considering who's still to come back? They still have Sean Malooly to come back. Would you consider them as closer to Connacht champions or not?
I still would certainly consider them as kind of third favourites in the province, kind of. But having said that, like Galway, you can't you just can't really rely on Galway on a one-off date as well. Like that, these things have happened before. That Roscommon have kind of caught Galway cold in stuff in games, and Roscommon have gone further in the kind of championship. That has been expected of them. But looking at the way kind of Division One's been played so far, how teams have performed, I think that Mayo have to be favourites in the province, and I'd have Galway still ahead of Roscommon. But on each individual day, it does depend kind of on how Galway themselves perform. But I wouldn't be too confident if I was a Roscommon fan right now.
Yeah, moving on from the results now, we're going to preview the semi-finals, which will take place in 2 weeks' time. The league semi-finals, Dublin against Donegal is in a neutral venue. Dublin against Donegal is going to be played in Cavan, and Kerry will have home advantage for their game against Tyrone. Now, obviously, as was stated, the league final will only take place if it is Dublin against Tyrone. So if you were in any of these camps, how would your mindset be?
I think it's ridiculous. Like, I can't believe this is happening, kind of. You'd wonder, like, the bit I don't get is why is there even semi-finals? If there can't be a final in some circumstances, why are we even having semi-finals? Surely the top two should just be playing for a final. Because otherwise, like, what is the point of even having the league if no one's going to win it? So, I don't know. I think Dublin and Kerry are going to win at the weekend, and we're not going to have a final. So it's it's a really, really weird situation.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, because if you were Kerry or if you were Donegal, and if you win this game, you're cancelling a whole event, you're cancelling the winners of a competition. Kerry and Donegal won't care about that. They're competitive teams. They're going to want to win the game regardless. But then again, I wonder if Dublin or Tyrone win their game. If Dublin and Tyrone win their games, then it's an extra game for them ahead of championship. They could get a nasty injury or something like that. It could hinder their preparations for championship. That could hurt Tyrone a lot more than it would hurt Dublin. Of course, the Ulster Championship being a lot more competitive than the Leinster Championship. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't see what is the point of playing league semi-finals if you're not going to play a final. Why didn't we just do the top two of each group play each other in a league final? I don't see what's the point of dragging Dublin and Tyrone into league semi-finals. Kerry and Donegal top the group. Why not just let them play out a final?
Yeah, completely. So I don't know. Yeah, it seems staggering. But anyway, I suppose these games will be very important at the weekend, and that they will. I suppose each team will kind of use them as an opportunity to kind of test themselves against. I suppose these teams are probably the four best teams in the country at the moment. Maybe an exception with Mayo.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But right now, I think that there won't be. Unfortunately, I think that there won't be a league final. I think Dublin will beat Donegal, but I think Kerry are going to beat Tyrone, and then we won't have a league final. We won't have league champions. Yeah, I just can't understand. I can't wrap my head around that decision.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. I'd completely agree with that as well. I think that's exactly how those two games are going to go as well at the weekend.
Yeah, as for the relegation playoffs from Division 1, now these games are quite hard to call. Galway against Monaghan is the one that I find the hardest to call out of the two. It's going to be hosted in Monaghan. Armagh against Roscommon will predict first, though. Armagh will have home advantage against Roscommon. I think this looks pretty bleak for Roscommon. I think that they're going down. I don't think that they're going to win this game.
Yeah, I think Roscommon's kind of yo-yo lifespan in Division One's going to continue. I think that they're going straight back down here. Kind of Armagh have looked really, really good in every game. They've been very, very competitive in all of them. And yeah, barring a disaster, I'd have to expect them to have enough to beat Roscommon at home.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. About the Galway Monaghan game as well, interestingly, Pádraig Joyce was very unhappy about the fact that Monaghan are going to have home advantage for this game. And I definitely agree with him. Monaghan, of course, broke the coronavirus rules about training. And yet they have home advantage for such an important game. And Pádraig Joyce slammed it as a joke that Monaghan are awarded home advantage for such a game like this. I would agree with him. I think that it should at the very least be played in a neutral venue. I think Galway are going to be fired up for this game. I think Monaghan will probably read those comments and get fired up in return. So this could be an outside shot for game of the weekend.
Yep, absolutely. If I had to call it, I think that I will edge towards Galway. Actually, I think the Galway are going to go up there, and I think they might actually just edge it. Very, very hard to call.
It's very hard to call because, in my mind, these are two of the most inconsistent teams in the division. Like, if you talk about Monaghan, they lose to Armagh, and then they take Donegal and Tyrone, two better teams, to the wire, and they draw with both of them. I think in this game, just because of home advantage, I'm gonna go with Monaghan to get the job done. I think Galway are gonna go down with Roscommon.
Yep, very good.
Okay, guys, that is our coverage of the Division 1 results and our previews of the semi-finals and the relegation playoffs. We'll come back with our analysis of Division 2, 3 and 4. Pan! Hello, everyone. Welcome back to part 2 of the Play on GAA podcast. In this part, we're going to take a look at the action that happened in Division 2, 3 and 4, and then we're going to preview the semi-finals for promotion and the relegation playoffs in each division. So first of all, we have Division 2 and the two teams who topped Division 2 North, Mayo and Meath. They played against each other and Mayo looked very impressive. 317 to 212, they won against Meath. Mayo looked very impressive. Of course, they had the game done, in my opinion, in the first half. They blew Meath away. Then they managed to bring back Aidan O'Shea, who's come back from his injury rather quickly. He scored a point with his first touch. Both teams were heavily changed, considering it was a dead rubber of a match. As for Meath, they looked good in patches. They scored a very nice goal by Brian Menton. But they looked a little bit shaky, and I think it'll be very interesting to see how their match against Kildare goes. But as for Mayo, they continue to look better and better.
Yep, absolutely. I think the biggest lesson to learn from this is that Mayo were just probably a level above Division 2 standard, and they've just shown that they've blown pretty much everyone in their way away kind of here with the last couple of games kind of. And yeah, so they've got plenty of kind of game time. They might be a bit concerned that they haven't had to face kind of top standard opposition going into kind of championship against two Division 1 sides. But yeah, I think plenty of positives for Mayo, especially I would say James Carr in the league has been a huge plus. You look kind of last year in the All-Ireland final, he wasn't really featuring for Mayo and stuff. So to get him back kind of fully involved kind of and ready to go, I think I think it's a big bonus for them.
Yeah, 100%. And this James Carr guy is the guy who scored probably the best goal in Gaelic football I've ever seen. I think we all remember that goal that he scored against Galway in round 4 of the qualifiers. Was it 2019?
Yes. Yeah, it was certainly it was that goal. It was seen everywhere. It was on Sky Sports that was being featured for how good it was. So to have him kind of back involved in this team. I know he kind of dropped off a little bit last year and not fully certain to the reasons as to why he wasn't the key part of that team. But yeah, he's certainly part of it. Scored 2 goals and a point there at the weekend. And yeah, they'd be delighted to see him kind of performing at his best.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about that, because as well as him being a wonderful footballer, he's an absolute tank. The guy is a big guy. And with Mayo starting to look a little bit vulnerable at midfield, if I was James Horn, I'd be looking to bring Aidan O'Shea back out to midfield, and I'd be looking to see if you can do what you did with Aidan O'Shea last year with James Carr. Like, he's a big guy, you can play high balls in on him for sure, and he's a real, like, once he gets going, there's no stopping him. Mayo's third goal, which was James Carr's goal, was a brilliant team move. You're talking about a sweeping move starting from the back involving Lee Keegan, the two O'Connor brothers, and then it was hand passed across the goal to James Carr and he slapped it in. It was a brilliant goal. In my opinion, it was the score of the league because the whole Mayo team was involved in it. And it just showed the strength and depth that they have, that, you know, they can make so many changes for a dead rubber and they can still swat aside, you know, a good solid Division 2 team in Meath.
Yep, absolutely. And they'll have Clare next weekend, and they should probably be expecting to get back up to Division 1 now.
Yeah. And speaking of Clare, they managed to fall over the line. But as I said, they needed to beat Cork for a chance to go up to Division 1, and they didn't do that. And now, in my opinion, they're not going up to Division 1 because with that Cork victory, now Clare will face Mayo instead of facing Meath. As for the game itself, David Tuberty, of course, made history, became the all-time top scorer in the Allianz leagues at 35 years of age. This guy is a wonderful footballer. He always has been. Superb performance from him, scoring 1 goal and 8 points. So there were some new faces for Clare that looked really good. Gavin Cooney, he's a young talent. He looked pretty good. Their left half forward, Dara Bahanan, looked very good. But they didn't get the job done in a really important game for Clare. They seemed to come a bit stuck, and Cork got the win. The most notable players for them, Cathal O'Mahony looked really good when he came off the bench. He's a really good talent. Ryan Hurley came on, kicked 2 points before getting sent off, which was a weird kind of introduction for him. But yeah, Cork looked inconsistent but good, and they got the win. But they're still in the relegation playoff, which is shocking for Cork, to be honest. What did you make of it all?
Yep, I thought it was a very, very good game. Like, very, very high scoring game for this time of the year, kind of. And you summed it up perfectly. That Clare, like, they'll be delighted to get into the playoff, but they'll know that their chance of getting to Division 1 was by playing Meath on the other side of that game. Can't see them performing like to a level where they can beat Mayo. So disappointing for them. Like, from a Cork perspective, they were kind of inconsistent coming into it. They had good performances from the forwards. Cathal O'Mahony, you've already said, 5 points. Kind of, he's been a fellow that's been talked about for a long, long time in Cork, kind of as a kind of a bunch of young kind of forwards coming through that they've been expecting to kind of take over this team. So delighted from his perspective. And as well, John O'Rourke, 4 points with the winner as well. So I think, exactly. I think that Cork will be disappointed with the ending up in that kind of relegation playoff, but I'd fully expect them to beat Westmeath comfortably in that game. So they'll be all right. And they can keep building for next year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As for the Westmeath game, and they lost by a point to Down. Down came out of their shell a little bit more in this game. It was a very poor first half for Westmeath. All 3 points that they scored came from John Heslin's frees. They kind of woke up in the second half, scored a screamer for Golfala Iorente. Scored a wonderful goal for Westmeath. They came very close to Down. Down hung on to win by a point. Both of these sides are going to be in the relegation playoff. Now it means that Westmeath are going to play Cork because they lost this game. I think that's a death sentence for them. I think Westmeath are going down. Down, on the other hand, they get home advantage against Laois, and I think that's them secured in Division 2 for another year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this was kind of, but Down really clung on to this game. Like, they, you look kind of where they went from half time. 13 points is a pretty miserable scoreline. I wouldn't be too enthused if I was a fan of either of these teams really at the moment. Not many great performances at the weekend. Probably Corey Quinn, best player from the Downfall forward, scoring 7 points, 4 frees. So yeah, I think, like you said, Down have to be delighted that with the win, they've got the easier of the two games. Laois look to be the only team in worse form than the two of these at the moment. So yeah, I think you sums up pretty well. Westmeath will be expecting to go down, and Down will be optimistic of retaining their Division 2 status now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But if Down don't change their ways, it's only a matter of time before they get relegated again. They're stuck in the past. They need to unleash some of the forwards that they have. They've really good forwards, the likes of Jerome Johnson. If Down want to have any realistic chance at winning the Ulster Championship, they have to sharpen some of the weapons they have up front.
Yep, completely.
Okay, moving on to the last game in Division 2, Laois against Kildare. Kildare just beat Laois out the gate, 218 to 1-8. Star of the match for me was Kevin Flynn. He was absolutely superb throughout the game. He got a goal from wing back. The other goal was scored by Luke Flynn, set up by Kevin Feely. Gary Walsh's goal for Laois was about as good as it got. But in the last 20 minutes, Kildare outscored Laois by 8 points to 1. And that sums the whole game up to me.
Yeah, that absolutely. Very, very worrying from a Laois perspective. They've had an absolute disastrous Division 2, losing every single game. And yeah, I can't see any way that they don't go down now next week. So yeah, very, very disappointing, especially considering that they were playing this weekend a kind of rival in the province, a team that they probably would have tried to have been alongside. But no, Kildare absolutely destroyed them. From a Kildare perspective as well, some kind of players pushing for a starting spot that haven't traditionally been nailing them. I think Neil Flynn, Derek Kerwin, Jimmy Hyland all looked really, really good the weekend, and they'll all be going for starting spots this year. So good to, for Jack O'Connor's perspective, that to see kind of young talent kind of coming through. So yeah, it's a good spot for Kildare.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And I think it will be interesting to see who out of Kildare and Meath is going to emerge as, well, the closest challenge that Dublin are going to have in Leinster this year. Moving on to Division 3, Offaly make it 3 from 3, beating Tipperary by 1 goal and 17 points to 1 goal and 12. Shows how far Offaly have come under John Maughan. Cian Farrell was their scorer in chief. He got their goal. Niall McNamee as well. What a guy this is. What a player this guy has been for Offaly. Came off the bench, hit 3 excellent points. Class is permanent with this guy. And a wonderful day for Offaly football.
Yep, definitely. I think the Niall McNamee introduction was absolutely huge. Like the game was level, 1-11 each at the water break in the second half, and then McNamee came on and Offaly absolutely tore Tip apart in the last 20 minutes or so. Finished up 117 to 112, and yeah, Offaly were really, really good in that last kind of quarter. So yeah, I think they've been absolutely brilliant in this league so far. I'd been very optimistic about them. You look kind of how they've been going for the last year or two. They've been getting continuously better under Maughan. So I think, and you know what, I think they'll be fancying their chances next week. They've got Fermanagh, who haven't been probably at their best at all, really. Offaly look far more free scoring than Fermanagh right now, and I would be expecting them to actually beat Fermanagh at the weekend and get up to Division 2 next year.
Yeah, I fancy them to do that as well, particularly after Fermanagh's draw against Longford. As for Tipperary, I've never seen a team more confusing than Tipperary in terms of, you know, what they go and achieve and then how they follow it up. You know, that they get to an All-Ireland semi-final in 2016, one of the stories of the summer. They put in a good performance in that game as well. No interest in the county in terms of, you know, the football side. No crowd shows up to the league matches. They win the Munster title last year out of nowhere. Nobody expected that to happen. And then they follow that up with failing to get out of Division 3, and they could go down to Division 4, which is mad. I've never seen a team that has such talent, the likes of Michael Quinlivan, Conor Sweeney, Josh Keane. These guys are brilliant, that seems to go through such hot and cold patches.
Yep, I think this league kind of has summed up the kind of unpredictableness of knockout championship that we saw last year. Like, you look at 2 provincial winners now are going to be in Division 3 relegation playoffs in Tipperary and in Cavan. And yeah, you'd probably expect both teams to be okay, that they should probably stay up. But still, the point is that they've gone from their provincial winners to being the best team in the entire kind of area to this kind of where they are struggling in with the smaller kind of counties and the smaller teams that haven't any hope with the All-Ireland. So it kind of sums up how kind of how strange a year last year was compared to what we're used to, where the big teams have had backdoor chances to come out on top. So yeah, I think it's kind of a promising sign for this year that on their day that maybe we might see more teams that are kind of struggling in Division 3 right now develop a bit of form later on the season and then give it a push kind of to Inter Province to try and get out of it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And speaking of teams hoping to get a smash and grab in their province, Derry will be hoping to do the same thing this year. They beat the Ulster champions to cap off their 3-from-3 record as well. 1 goal and 16 points to 2 goals and 11. They beat Cavan by. Shane McGuigan in this game was fantastic. He scored the first point of the game within 30 seconds. Niall Loughlin made it 4 points to 0 for Derry. Great start. They looked very comfortable. Cavan had spells where they came back into the game, but Shane McGuigan, right after the Martin Riley goal, scored a crucial point to settle Derry right back down. And that saw them home. And I'm asking you, would you see Derry as Ulster competitors?
Well, I think on the basis of kind of how they're playing and how every other team in Ulster is playing, no other team in Ulster is pulling away and separating themselves as the clear favourite at the moment. I know Derry are down Division 3, but they've just beaten the Ulster champions, and they have you look at the score difference that they have so far in this division, they've absolutely ran away with it. We're going 2 or 3 weeks until championship. They've all the form with them at the moment, and another win next week to get themselves up to Division 2, and confidence will be absolutely sky high. As well, you look at the midfield, kind of, I think that partnership of Conor Glass and Emmett Bradley is as strong as you're going to get all across the country. Bradley hit 3 points the weekend, and we all know about Conor Glass as well. So yeah, I think they're in a fantastic place. So I think they can't be written off as a serious contender for Ulster.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And as you were saying, in other years, I would have said, no, there's no way a team in Division 3 is going to win this. But you have to look at how vulnerable the teams above them are looking, and the fact that it is knockout championship. They have either Down or Donegal in the quarterfinals of the Ulster Championship. And if Donegal are still shaky, if Donegal are still without Michael Murphy, you'd have to wonder, could they perform a smash and grab there and take out Donegal? Right now,
Yep,
they look really, really good.
I think that's Donegal as the favourites in Ulster. I think that's the best time to get Donegal. Donegal don't look at their sharpest at the moment. They're not beating teams comfortably. They don't look too convincing right now. So I think this is the best time for Derry to catch them early before they get into a bit of rhythm. So yeah, I think Rory Gallagher will be absolutely delighted with their league.
Yeah. As for Cavan, they'll be extremely disappointed to not get out of Division 3. It's a little bit embarrassing to be provincial champions and to be down so low. They didn't even play particularly well in this game. As I was saying, I thought this would be the shot in the arm for Cavan to think, we haven't played particularly well, and here we are with a chance to get promoted anyway. I thought that would be the shot in the arm that they needed. But they didn't play that well. Their 2 goals as well, they were rather fortunate with the Martin Riley pinged in a sideline ball, and it was a mistake by the Derry goalkeeper, Orwan Lynch. He came off the line when he shouldn't have. McKiernan boxed it over him into the net. And for the second goal, it was a shot off the post. Pádraig Faulkner collected the rebound, passed it across the goal, and Martin Riley palmed it in. They're lucky goals, and I think they won't get chances like that in championship football. Like, they have to step up their game. They're playing Tyrone in the first round of the championship for them. And if they don't wake up quick, they're going out in the first round.
Yeah, hard to argue with that at the moment. It was pretty awful kind of league campaign for them. But you look kind of similar to last year. There was kind of no kind of clues that Cavan were going to go on the Ulster run that they did last year. Their league form last year gave no indication that they were going to do as well as they did. So I think it just shows kind of the volatility of the championship right now with no backdoor, no nothing like that. So I think it's going to be, they need to get their act in order pretty quick.
Yeah. The 2 other games that took place in Division 3, Fermanagh qualified for the promotion semi-finals with a draw against Longford, 1 goal and 15 points to 18 points. Sean Quigley scored a goal and 8 for Fermanagh. His strength set up his goal. It was a nice finish from him. Darren Gallagher stopped another goal-bound shot on the line. He looked particularly good. He seems to be carrying Fermanagh on his shoulders right now. As for Longford, they got some nice scores from the likes of Rian Brady. would you give Longford much of a chance against Tipperary in the relegation playoff?
I would, to be honest. Yeah, I think Longford would be disappointed enough now that they didn't win this in the end. I think they felt kind of aggrieved. The Robbie Smith kind of injury missed the last 10 minutes after he'd already kicked 8 points in the game, and I think they might have believed that if he could have stayed fit, then they might have had a chance to have got over the line in this one and not be faced with that fixture next weekend. But but if he's out of the game next week, it's another huge loss. So yeah, they will have home advantage against Tip, and it's a big enough ask. So it's hard with the call. I probably still would edge towards Tip to just about save themselves there.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that, but I wouldn't be stunned if Longford did turn them over, particularly with how shaky Tip are looking right now.
Yep. But at the same time, I feel Longford are probably too good a team for Division 4. So it is a pity for them.
Yeah, I think if Longford go down, I think they'll bounce straight back up. I think the likes of Michael Quinn, Darren Gallagher, these guys are not Division 4 footballers. And if Longford go down, they'll be straight back up, in my opinion. As for the other game, Limerick 2 goals and 19 points, Wicklow 1 goal and 12. Some eye-catching points. Ian Corbett from centre half back. An eye-catching performance as well from Danny Neville. This guy looks a serious talent. Scored a superb solo goal. He ran down along the end line and then slotted it under the goalkeeper, Mark Jackson. And then he set up another goal for Hugh Burke with the same type of run down the end line. Limerick potentially going up to Division 2, which would be back-to-back promotions. It shows how far they've come under Billy Lee.
Yeah, I think I don't know how much you can read into it. I'm kind of Wicklow have really struggled as well at this level. I think maybe Division 3, it was too soon for them kind of up in Division 3, and that they found it very hard going kind of this year. And yeah, you kind of look at the previous fixtures. Limerick have done well. They've had good results, particularly against Tip as well in the previous games. But they run into the informed Derry side next week. So I think that's probably going to be the end of their Division 2 hopes for this year. But a very positive campaign for them. And I'd expect Cavan to comfortably beat Wicklow next weekend. So that should seal their fate anyway.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. So that's us done with Division 3. Let's move on to the Division 4 results. Antrim made it 3 wins from 3 under Enda McGinley. They beat Leitrim by 2 goals and 17 points to 1 goal and 19 points. Louth won by 3 goals and 18 points to 1 goal and 14 points. A good win from Mickey Hart. And in Division 4 South, Carlow had a 1-point win, beating Wexford by 2-12 to 2-11. What do you make of this division?
Yeah, I think it was. We're kind of starting to see Louth starting to look better and better. You've got the games next weekend, the semi-finals: Carlow versus Louth and Waterford versus Antrim. So yeah, I think the two kind of standout teams for me so far that I've been most impressed with would be Louth and Antrim. And yeah, I think they've got, particularly Antrim. Antrim have a lot to build, and another kind of team in Ulster that's starting to look in very good form. I don't know, maybe coming from Division 4 is too much of an ask, but I think they could definitely give a game to some of the bigger teams kind of in the province.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they're playing against Armagh in the quarterfinal. I think that will be a step too far for them, but they are vastly improved under Enda McGinley, and I think the only way is up for them. Yeah, I think Antrim and Louth are going to go up out of Division 4, in my opinion.
Yep, completely. Yeah, I think like Louth have probably the tougher fixture. They have to go to Carlow, but yeah, I think I'd be backing Mickey Hart that he's going to get his team over the line.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, so that is our coverage of the football that took place last weekend and our preview of the matches that will take place in 2 weeks' time. Okay, guys, so that is the end of this episode of the Play On GAA podcast. We thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and take care.